morning, everybody. Today we're answering the question, what's the difference between a network and a VLAN? And the short, not very satisfying answer is that while they are not the same thing, they'll probably map one-to-one. That is to say that every VLAN will likely have one network. Stick around to find out more. Let's get into it. So, a VLAN is a broadcast domain which defines what devices can hear each other's broadcasts. Whereas a network is a bunch of addresses, network addresses, all in a row, and defines who can talk to each other without going through a router. So, computers with addresses in the same, we'll say IPv4 network, when they want to talk to each other, they're going to send out ARP messages. In fact, I think it's time for Tiny Brian. Tiny Brian. Okay. I already got to drawing a little bit. Right? So, if we've got different devices that are going to be trying to talk to each other because they're in the same network, they're going to need to be able to send out one of those ARP messages that we've been talking about. And that's going to be a broadcast. This is certainly in the IPv4 space. In IPv6, there's something else called a neighbor discovery. It's not technically a broadcast because there's no broadcast in IPv6, but it's going to act in practice pretty darn similar. Either way, when you're trying to talk to some other computer that's in the same network as you, you need to be able to send out a shouted message, essentially to everyone else within that network to say who has that address for IPv4, the ARP. And so, if you're trying to do that, you and whoever you're trying to talk to need to be in the same broadcast domain, same VLAN. Now, that can be extended. Here in this imagining, we've got some access switch 1 with a couple of hosts in VLAN 10. And some access switch 2 with a couple of hosts in VLAN 10 as well. And then there's some VLAN 20 hosts on each of them. And we're trunking those VLANs up to some other switch up here. Some distribution switch, we might say. Which I might have just spelled wrong. Who knows? Okay, and in this way, we can have devices in that same VLAN 10 across multiple switches, and any one of them should be able to broadcast to each other something like an ARP message to talk to each other, allowing them to be in the same network. Yeah, okay. So, because of this, all the devices within a network need to be in the same VLAN or broadcast domain as each other to talk, because that ARP thing's got to work. Now, flip side, could we have more than one network per VLAN? Yes, but unless you got an interesting, odd, corner case, don't. Because here's what it comes down to. All of those devices that have the IP addresses in the same network as each other, well, they can talk to each other without going through some router. Do something like ARP to find each other and then send a message directly to their buddy. Love it. But if I had a whole bunch of different networks all in the same VLAN, well, it would work. They devices in 10.0.10/24 could talk to each other. 10.0.10/24 could talk to each other. 10.0.20/24 could talk to each other and all be in the same broadcast domain. But they'd all be hearing and discarding a whole bunch of broadcasts from hosts on those other networks that they don't need. And any communication based on IPv4 or IPv6, they wouldn't be able to talk to each other directly without going through a router anyway. And so you would want to have different networks then in different broadcast domains. Okay. So hosts within the same network need to be in the same broadcast domain, VLAN. And if I have one VLAN or broadcast domain, I almost certainly only want one network in there so that we're not having to hear and discard broadcast and unregistered unicast, stuff like that, messages from hosts on other networks. Yes, and so that's why the one-to-one mapping. Okay, so metaphor time. The best metaphor I can think of for the relationship between a VLAN and the network is a jug. Jug of water, milk, whatever makes the most sense for you, right? So that jug of water, it is not the water, but it defines the shape of it and where it can go, in the same way that a VLAN defines the shape and where you can get access to that network. Going back over to our diagram here, We've got our VLAN 10 we imagined over here on access switch 1, and again over there on access switch 2, and trunks between them on this distribution switch. Excellent. And then in this case, we've got some router up top that we're routing between these different networks. This is sort of a classic 3-tier architecture that you might refer to as access, distribution, and core. All right, nothing wrong with this at all. Still in use all over the place, though there are other topologies that in many cases are gaining popularity. In this one, though, one of the big advantages that this brought out to begin with is being able to have our VLAN 10 on any of these switches, anywhere. If you've got some new employee in the marketing department, their desk doesn't have to be right next to everyone else in the marketing department to get access to the broadcast domain that you might want to put them on, the network that you might want to put them on, because you can put that VLAN wherever you want, as long as you can still connect up those broadcast domains. All right, everyone, this is just a little short one today, so quick recap. A VLAN is not a network, but they usually map one-to-one because all of those hosts within a network you want to have in the same broadcast domain as each other. You would then have some routed interface attached to each of those broadcast domains to allow you to route between them. Maybe that's some connected up router. Maybe it's something like a layer 3 switch that I think we'll talk about next time. All right, everybody, this continues to be a blast. I'm really glad to be here. In fact, let me go, babe. John Brian. Thanks so much for coming back, and hope you're enjoying these like I am. If you've got a suggestion, something you want to know more about or that you want to bring up, drop it in the comments. I love to hear from you. If you like what you're seeing, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
At last, at last! The vagaries of what a network and broadcast domain is shall hinder me no further. The world is mine!
You don't understand metaphors, do you?